Well, good morning. Jim Sunderwirth here from the Swing. So nice to have you with us today. Hey, we've been studying on very, very important things, talking about when God speaks to Moses and how he's setting up the tabernacle and setting up the priesthood. You see, remember now, there's people, they hadn't been close to God for 400 years. All they had influence-wise was Egypt, and all the gods of Egypt had eyes but couldn't see, ears that couldn't hear, mouths that couldn't speak, powers that couldn't do a thing for them. And now they're at the base of Mount Sinai for about a year, and God's speaking to them, and we've talked all about that. And last time we talked about the fact that the priests in their garments and how important it was as they dressed. You see, from about 21, 20, basically God begins to speak to them, but then from chapter 20 of Exodus all the way up to 40, God gives them specific, extremely specific instructions how to build the temple in the wilderness, how to dress the priest, what the responsibilities of the priest would be, and what their responsibility in worship to have their sins covered. You see, and basically they were being taught how to have a relationship with God and how to worship. The two most important things of our life is how to worship and then how to have a relationship with God, and having that relationship with God gives us the ability to have a relationship with each other. And so this was the example. You remember, God chose these people to share with the world his intent and how much that he wanted the best for them. So we've been talking about, and we talked about a few days back about the temple and the Holy of Holies and the holy place, and we talked about the articles that were in there, like the menorah and the bread of showbread, the table of showbread, and actually the ark. But I want to step back. I want to go back just a little bit and talk about the temple itself. If I took the time to talk to you about the specifics of the breadth and the length and the height of that temple and how specific it was, we could be here for a long time. But just know that God was very specific and how he even built the outer court, how he built the inner court, how he built the inner tabernacle. Everything was extremely minutely detailed, even to the colors of everything, and they all had specific reasons for those colors. So when you think that God would be just kind of going through letting life happen, no way. He's very detailed. And you can look around and see that he's very detailed in the creation itself. So anyway, but what I want to focus on just for a few moments today, I want to go back to the tabernacle and to share with you how it would go. It was a tabernacle. When you first walked in, there was the altar of burnt offering. There was and this altar was built in a very specific way. It was acacia wood covered with copper, and they had the horns on the altar. And this is very interesting. In the 9th chapter, when they got finished with the very specifics of this tabernacle, as they built the fence around it, as they built the altar and all the articles of that, and they got it completely finished, and they sat back and they were waiting on the Lord. The Bible says that at that moment, God accepted what they had done, and he sent fire from heaven to that altar, and he was the original initiator of that fire. In other words, that fire came right down into that altar. He created it himself. Now, they sustained it from then on, but he started the fire in the altar. Isn't that amazing? That is crazy amazing. And we're going to talk later when we get into Leviticus. We're going to be talking about the priest and how important it was that everything they did in that, as they needed flame or they needed fire, had to come from that altar. Everything. They couldn't use anything but what came off that altar, because you see, that altar was an altar where people got right with God. That's where they got right with God. And they would bring their sacrifices, and the priest would meet them outside that tent, and they had to be responsible. There was responsibility on their part to bring that animal and cut its throat, take the blood, give the blood to the priest. The priest would come in and take the articles of that sacrifice, wash the innards, and they would put that sacrifice on that altar. And when they did, that incense of that lamb would go up being burnt. Something innocent dying for the guilty. points to Jesus. I'll see you tomorrow.